All right, welcome everybody to the Workflow Wednesday live. We're just going to get started here in a few minutes. All right, well, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Let me just do a short intro so that we've got, as people kind of join in, we can get them going in here as well, so give them a few minutes to join. So today we are talking about our Flexi Print and Cut Authorized 3M Traffic Edition. So this particular product is something that we offer specifically for those who want to use their HP machine and be able to print traffic signs that are up to standard. So the DOT has a pretty high standard in terms of that kind of stuff, and what 3M and HP have done together is that they have created special, or they've collaborated with us in creating a special version of the software that has pre-tuned profiles, pre-tuned color swatches, and pre-tuned ICC profiles for their machines so that you can get the perfect colors that you need to for your traffic printing needs. So let's talk. What we want to kind of really talk about here is just a few things. It'll be a little bit general. It may not be as long as our shows usually are, but what we want to talk about is kind of how to set it up and how to make sure that you're getting the right color. Now, if you want to get this particular version of the software, all you need to do is contact a reseller that sells the 3M Traffic Edition, and they can get you in contact with the software. So essentially you purchase it just like another separate version of the software. So for example, if you have a Flexi subscription, this would be a separate version. Mainly because since it is a proprietary process, 3M and HP did a ton of work in trying to figure out profiles and color swatches, and they did all the programming for it basically to figure out what are the colors. So that's why it's in a separate version, is because it's all kind of proprietary, and so it's all included in this version of the software. But first of all, what we want to do is you want to get into the printer itself. And if you've downloaded, if you've purchased the software, or if you're even just mainly remotely interested in this kind of product, the first thing we're going to want to do is download the ICC profiles from the printer itself. So before you even install Flexi or anything like that, we're going to go ahead and go to the printer itself. And so this is the front of your HP printer. You're going to go right to this panel, and we actually need to download the profiles from the printer itself first. So you're going to go to the substrate library here on your HP, and you're going to go to online search. And we're going to, because you may actually find that there are some 3M traffic profiles on your printer, but those aren't the newest ones. So we have to make sure we download the V3 ones. You're going to go to online search, and then under brand, what I do is right here under brand, I just tap brand and then select 3M. So 3M Commercial Graphics Division is what I selected. And then once you select that, all your 3M profiles will show up. So the nice thing here is that you will see them. They say V3 in their name. You just scroll through with your finger. They're towards the bottom, and then you just download those profiles. So once you get those profiles downloaded on the printer itself, then then we can actually go into the software. Now the software does have presets set up, but they require that you pull these profiles. So the presets won't work if you don't pull these profiles in. So that is the end of that. Let's jump right into our software. So this Traffic 3M edition is going to look a lot similar, or very similar to a lot of your versions of Flexi. In fact, it's exactly the same. There's really no difference in terms of how it appears and how it works and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add a device. So the way we would do that is typically like you would in any Flexi. By the way, if you guys, anytime, if you have any questions about any of this stuff as we're going through it, shoot a question in the chat or in the comments, and we'll get to those. And it doesn't have to be about this version. It could be about any Flexi question. So just be aware that if you have any questions, we'll be addressing those live as well. So, all right, so we've got, we're just going to go ahead and set up any printer here. Now, unfortunately, the printer we have in our office here is a 360 or 335. So I'm not going to be able to set up a 360 with the proper device settings, but we'll just set it to file for now. But when you add a device, you are going to want to enter your IP address. The nice thing is if I click on Find Device and then hit Update, this will actually pull all the devices that are on my network that I could choose. So the nice thing is about these HPs, they broadcast their IP in terms of our software. I know it doesn't want me to, doesn't like that. So you can do that, or if you already know the IP address, you can go ahead and just type it in and hit OK. Now in this case, because I actually don't have one set up, I'm going to just hit cancel, and I'm going to set this up to file. So this is just a temporary workaround for me, since I don't actually have one of these devices. I could connect to my 335, but it will give us a bunch of errors, and it's not worth showing. So I'm going to just hit finish, and this will create a new device for me. So now from here, there's several settings that we really kind of want to focus on. And we're going to go to the name here at the bottom, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go to my default job properties. Now, what's special about this version of the software is, like I mentioned before, is that we have all the presets pre-configured into the software. So as long as you've downloaded the profiles from the printer, these presets will work. So when I select my 3M HP 360 4000 series V3 preset, what I want to look for is several different things here. So first of all, I'm going to go to my color management tab, and we're going to verify that the settings are the same here. So my output profile should match the media. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that when you add that device, and it didn't happen here because I didn't actually connect to a device, but when you connect your printer, your HPs, they're going to download all the profiles right off of the printer. And so I had to do this in a little more manual way because ahead of time, but this would automatically happen. So you go to your printer, you download those V3 profiles right from the printer, and then when you hook it up to the software, boom, it just goes right over, and Flexi automatically pulls those profiles off the list. So it knows that there's a difference between the two, and it says, hey, let me pull those real quick. So it pulls those in for you. So these are the big things, one of the big things we want to check here. Now, another thing that we want to check is if you're having problems with any of the 3M colors, this is where we might want to come in and check a few different things. So first of all, you do want color mapping checked. This option needs to be checked. It is crucial for this option to be selected. And if we click on color mapping, this will kind of show you why. The reason why that's important is because each one of your traffic colors are actually pre-mapped for you in the software. So HP and 3M have already gone to the extent of the work to find out, take these colors and then make sure that they have yellow and black equivalents that will always reproduce the correct color. So these things have been fine-tuned to these machines. So that's the good thing here. And one thing you'll probably want to just take note of is that these colors right here, they have to be named exactly like this. And once we get into the designer portion here, I'll kind of compare and show you why that's important on this side here. But you'll notice that they all say traffic with a capital T, and then the color is always in all caps. So traffic black, traffic red, traffic green. So that needs to be, and it needs to look like this. So we don't need to change any values here. They should just be there with this option of use color mapping turned on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, one of the things that you can do in this version, and this actually applies to any version of Flexi, really, if you think about it, it allows you to create multiple setups for each device. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click on this up here, and I'm going to go to my setup properties, and I'm going to rename this one. Maybe HP Latex 3. Let's just take HP 360, and then maybe we'll give it the 4000 V3. Maybe we'll give it that name, right? And I can hit OK. So now that list, that object will appear as a printer with that name. Now the cool thing is here is I can right click again, and I can say duplicate setup. And when I do this, it's going to automatically prompt me for the name. Maybe I'll just skip that for now because I don't know what this name is going to be. I'll hit finish, and it'll take you right into the default job properties right after you do this. And so now I can go in here and say, well, okay, so looks like the other one is the 3990. All right, so maybe these are the two top ones that you use. So again, I'm going to select that preset. I'm going to hit color management. Make sure that my output profile and media match what's showing up here at the top. Make sure that my use color mapping is on. I'm going to click on my color mapping button, and I'm just going to make sure that they're all here. So look like they are. I can hit apply, and then OK. And once I'm done with that, then I can right click on it again. I'll go back into the setup properties, and we'll just call this one HP 360 3990 and hit OK. So now that'll actually show up as a separate printer. The nice thing is about doing this is that you can set up multiple printers, despite the fact that it's the same printer. You can actually set up multiple devices with different types of settings. So if you want to reduce confusion, this is one way that you can kind of help do that, is you can set all the settings for that particular device, the profile, the preset, and everything, and then that device never changes. And then you add a second device with the same, basically the same IP address, and then you'll see those show up inside of the designer. So let's go over to the designer real quick and take a look at that. So now one of the things that you'll notice in the designer here is that down below in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a few additional colors that we've added to our Flexi color chart. In fact, let me pull that out. And you can see that we've got our traffic colors here. So we've got our traffic yellow, brown, black, purple, blue, green, and red. And the important thing here is that what's really crucial about these colors, there's a couple different steps. And the nice thing is that because most of the work has been done for you, all you have to do is verify that these little small, tiny little details are set, and your colors will come out perfect. So that's the nice thing about this. So what's important is these names. It is really important that you do not change the names of these colors in any way. If you change the name of the colors, what happens is the mapping no longer then recognizes what to do with that color. So let's say somehow I change one of these colors to, uh, traffic yellow with the yellow in lowercase. What the software will do is the software will look at that color and says, oh, okay, well, that's just a yellow. And so then it just processes it in its normal way with no color mapping. And so what will happen is your yellow will turn out poor. And so this, if you're having problems with your colors, this is one way to check that, is make sure that your colors are labeled properly and they're all the same. So they say traffic and then the capital yellow. So check that, because the way that the software works is that this particular color has a bunch of values associated to it. And so when we choose it, the software just says, oh, hey, over here in Production Manager, it says that you're mapping it to these specific values. So no matter what I do, I have to print out these values. And when I print out these values, they'll come out perfect. So if the name gets changed, or if the name also gets changed inside of the Production Manager in the color mapping, that can also be a problem. So just kind of be aware of that. That's something that you might want to check into. But we've got all of those colors here. I'm going to zoom this back down here into our toolbar. And then let's just draw up a couple shapes here. And I'm just going to give them a couple different colors. Got our red, our green, and then maybe let's do our yellow. Okay, so when we hit rip and print, what we're going to notice is that up here at the top, now remember how I said that we have our profile, our presets here? We can set these here, but it's easier because I set up multiple devices for multiple profiles. All I have to do is click on up here. So see how we see the one that says 3990, and then this one says 4000. If I click on the 4000 one, it automatically loads in my 4000 series preset. And if we were to go into my color correction tab here, it would also show me my profile as being the 4000 series as well. So this is the tip that can be used not only in just this traffic edition version, but this could be used in any old shop as well. If you have multiple users inside your shop, you could set up multiple printers of the same type with different settings, and that would allow you to switch the printers based on what they do and maybe what settings they need if you wanted to do that as well. So this is something that could be perfectly adapted to any versions of Flexi to save yourself a little bit of time and headache if you're having trouble with remembering settings or things like that, or if you have 2 or 3 types of materials that you use very frequently. This would be a really great way to solve that problem. So again, in this particular screen, we're not really going to change anything because most of it is already preset by HP and 3M. They've done a good job of calibrating that, so they know what to do there. At this point, all we have to do is hit send, and that job would go over. Now, one thing I do want to show you here real quick is we're going to actually go back to the production manager, and I'm going to pretend to send a job here. I'm going to right click on my HP 4000 V3 one, and I'm going to go to test print. Now, I'm going to cancel it real quick right after I send it so it doesn't error out. I'm going to abort. Okay, so I've aborted the job, but what this test does is this actually is a little bit different of a test. So you notice that it's got now all the traffic colors. So if you needed to run a quick test to see if your colors are printing correctly, this is a really good way to do that, is to come into the production manager. Now this particular print, test print, is only found inside this Authorized 3M Traffic Edition. If you're familiar with any of our other versions of the software, you'll probably find that this looks a little different from our typical one. Our typical one just has like a CMYK and RGB, and then it says test print. So it's a little bit different. But I can come in here now and I can verify that these things are correct. and I can send this test print, verify that that profile is working, and that my printer is printing okay. One of the things that if you do run into any issues and you've kind of looked through all these different settings and you've gone to look at all these things and they all look okay, at this point, you'd probably want to contact your local reseller. So if you're having troubles with the color and you still are having issues, contact your local reseller. They will know how to kind of check into it. There may actually be an issue with HP, or who knows, there could be something else going on. But these are kind of the base things that we want to check. So this, combined with any kind of signage that you need to create, this can be a really, really powerful tool in order to do any kind of signage or anything like that for this for your local state government or your highways or roads and that kind of thing. Let's see here. So let's go in and go back into Flexi here. I'm going to use the production manager settings. You may see this particular thing pop up in here. If you ever get this color setting difference in this particular version of the software, this doesn't necessarily apply to every other version of Flexi, but it does in this version. You typically want to say use the production manager settings. Because that's where the color mapping is stored, is in production manager. So we want to use PM settings. Now, just to kind of explain what the difference is between PM settings and rip and print settings, basically you have two different screens, rip and print and production manager. The settings can be different based on how you're creating jobs. So for example, the reason why they can be different is because some people may not use Flexi as their designer and they import jobs directly into production manager. So production manager would need to have its own separate set of color settings so that you could accommodate that particular job. And then obviously those who use Flexi are going to want to use the rip and print settings because they're importing jobs into Flexi and they're modifying and making changes and then sending them print. So typically, most of your users that are using Flexi and you're sending jobs through rip and print are going to use the keep rip and print settings. If you're using this particular version of the software, the Authorized 3M Traffic Edition, this is going to be a use PM settings because the mapping is specifically inside the production manager. So just be aware of that. So that's something to look after in case that's an issue. If you run into a problem where you're not sure, you can go to your edit menu and I can scroll down to preferences. And if I go to tools, scroll down to rip and print, I can say prompt for which one to use, or I can just always set it to use production manager settings or always keep rip and print settings. So you can set that up by default if you're not sure which one to use. All right, so let's go back into rip and print here and double check anything that we have. One of the things that you're probably going to want to also be aware of is this ignore overprint. This option usually should always be checked. If you turn this off, it could have some issues. So try and keep that one or checked, ignore overprint. So also be aware of that one as well. So that should be, and that's basically the 3M Traffic Edition. It makes all of your signs and stuff for local governments and highway so much easier. We actually have a local company here in the state or in the city of Salt Lake that does all of our Utah highway signs and road signs for the city of Salt Lake, and they use this version of our software. And so it's very good. It's very, or they use a very similar version of the software. We have another one for for Muto edition as well. But this one is also used in a lot of different places. So this is a really good product that is used all over. We've had really good success with it. And the thing is it takes the guesswork out of your hands, really. And so if you guys have any problems, usually it's just one of these things. But the nice thing is you don't have to faddle about with profiles. It's already done for you. You don't have to create new profiles. Everything is pretty well developed, and so that's what's really nice about this product. So that kind of gives us an overview of the software. Do you guys have any questions on this or about anything Flexi related before we continue? Hopefully this will kind of get your guys' interest peaked in that direction if you already have an HP 360 or above. I believe, let's go back to Production Manager here while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions. Let's just take a look at the supported devices here. So it's HP, obviously. So, okay, so it's the 360 and 365 are the ones that are supported by this. That's what I thought. The 330s and the 335s are not. So if you have a 360 and a 365 already, and you've been considering trying to do something like this, get into this market, this is a perfect solution for you. We also have another version. It's for the Muto edition, for a Muto printer. It's a little bit it's similar, a little bit different, but that might also be worth looking into. But this one is specifically for the HP printers. And again, it's not going to be a different experience in terms of how you use the software. The design capabilities are the same. In fact, you can create files just like you could. You're going to see that your tools are all exactly the same. So the nice thing is that it's basically a full version of Flexi, except for you've got this additional functionality built into it. Is there a way, we do have a question. Robert says, is there a way to select all within a nested job? Within a nested job, that's a good question. If you have a bunch of stuff nested together, I do know that inside of Flexi, we have an option for under the edit menu to select. So you can select by all kinds of different things. And I'm not sure if this is exactly what will answer your question or not, but I have found that even if I have items that are grouped together or that are maybe not grouped together, but they're kind of all on top of each other and layered, and there's all kinds of stuff to deal with, and I'm trying to find all the objects. Here's a perfect example. You've got this huge document, and let's say you have all kinds of stuff going on in the design, and you want to replace all of one specific color with a different color. I can then select, I can select all. I can invert my selection. So if I have several items selected and I want to select everything but those 3 items, I can invert my selection. Or I can select by similar objects, similar color. So if I have, like, for example, this color selected, I can say select by similar objects, which would be squares or circles of the same size, or similar colors. Or if I select by attributes, this is probably the more powerful tool. I can come in here and I can select by all kinds of different things. So I can select by the fill color. I can select it if I'm looking for all the objects that have this particular stroke on them, I could do that. Or I can select a particular object by how many effects that they have on them. So let's just throw a couple effects on here. Let's do an outline. Let's do a shadow. And then let's do a contour cut on this one. We'll apply that. So now if I go to edit, select by attributes, and if I go to our effects, now I can select all objects that have an outline, all objects that have a shadow, or all objects that have a contour cut. So if I make a bunch of copies of this. And I want to select everything that has a contour cut on it. Select by attributes, contour cut, okay. And now I've selected all of the objects that have a contour cut. So hopefully that answers your question. That's a really powerful tool. It's kind of in a hidden little spot, so not a whole lot of people know about it, but it's a great spot to be in if you need to select something and you really don't want to have to tear apart your file to change a color or something. It's really, really helpful. Looks like we got another question from Christina. It says, so why is it when we print sometimes when the print is done, it comes out with an oily film? Well, that's a good question. That could be several different things. If it's, I wonder if it's specifically tied to the 3M edition. It could be something related to the printer maybe, but we may want to have you check with your dealer with that and see. It could be something issue with the printer, or maybe there's an issue with the setup or something. But if it's just a regular Flexi that's not a 3M, then that could be several things. Typically, when your print comes out, you would want it to be nice. You don't want it to be tacky, or you don't want it to be wet at all. So depending on the printer that you have, you may want to adjust your, it's possible that maybe your platen heater or the heaters are not, they're not warm enough or they're not hot enough. So especially if you're getting like a little bit of tackiness or a little bit of pooling of ink, your profile may actually be putting a little bit too much ink down and it's not drying all the way. So increasing the temperature might help. And then maybe increasing the dryer temperature as well, or maybe increasing the dry time. So if you can increase the dry time a little bit, that'll help so that piece is on there a little drier. If there's some other kind of film on top of it and it doesn't seem like it's wet, that could be profile related. What I might do is I might actually try a couple different profiles and see if that same problem persists throughout multiple profiles, because each profile is supposed to be different. So if you try one profile and it does it, and you go to a different profile and that problem goes away, it could be that it's just related to the profile. But if the profile you choose, let's say we choose 3 different profiles that are significantly different, let's say one's glossy, one's matte, and one's like a banner material, and the same problem persists throughout all of those prints, despite whether you have that material or not, if you still get that same problem, that could be more related to a printer problem. So those are kind of 2 ways to kind of narrow it down. If you go to a different profile and the problem goes away, then it could just be something quirky with that profile and it's not working right. Or if the problem persists throughout multiple profiles, I would probably check on the printer side and see if there's something going on there. Just because if profiles are different enough and they're created in such different ways that usually the same problem should not follow the same. Same thing goes with banding. If you have banding and it goes from profile to profile to profile, no matter what profile you use, it bands every time. That's usually a printer problem. So I would check those 2 things. And if that doesn't work, maybe there's some tests we could do. Give us a call on our tech support and we can maybe troubleshoot that and see if there's something going on there. So let's see. Looks like, do we have any other questions? It looks like that might be all of them for now. Looks like we had a comment from Steve. Thanks. Yeah, that production manager thing can be a little bit tricky. It's always been a little bit of a confusing one, but if you ever see that, that's something just to kind of keep your eye out for. So yeah, that actually can throw off a ton of people's colors. So if you're just using a regular Flexi and you're not using the Traffic 3M edition, that is actually one of the first things we check for, or sometimes that can be wrong. you're actually using the production manager settings instead of your rip and print. So you'll be changing all these settings inside of the rip and print, saying, oh yeah, I want to use this new profile, and I want to use these heater settings, and I want to use this and that. And then you send it over, and all those settings get ignored, and it just uses the production manager settings anyway. So that can actually be a huge confusion factor for how that works. So that is one, if you are having color issues, that might be a worthwhile option to check, is make sure that you're using the rip and print if you're making changes in rip and print and it doesn't seem to be making any difference. So good question. Appreciate that. All right. Well, looks like we've exhausted all of our questions. Thanks, guys, for all the interaction. We just a reminder, we do this every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Workflow Wednesday is what we do it. So 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Salt Lake City. Feel free to join us. We have a new and different topic every week. We talk from anything from en route to Flexi to printing to color to just about anything we can think of. So if you have any topic suggestions, feel free to put something in the comments or in the chat. We'll read those, and if you guys have any good suggestions, we'd be glad to try and put those in. So again, thanks you guys for joining. This is going to be it for now, and you guys have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and goodbye. We'll see you guys later.